Hi, have you ever written a letter to God? If you haven't done it yet, I highly recommend you do so. You will be amazed. I did it and it changed my life forever. My name is Antonio Nisi. I'm the author of the book A Letter to God. A Letter to God is the English translation of the French version, Une lettre à Dieu. And today, I want to give it to you for free. A Letter to God is the story of a daring act of faith that changed my life and could change your life as well. If you find yourself on the verge of giving up, this story will give you a second wind. It will renew your hope and inspire you to overcome whatever challenge you may face. And the good news is that I'm giving the ebook copy for free. So simply click on the link you see on the screen to get your free ebook copy of A Letter to God. But before you do, you probably want to know what A Letter to God story is all about. So let me share my story with you. You will be amazed. In 2010, I found myself jobless and homeless in a foreign country in Africa. What happened is that a few months earlier, I had left my job in Cameroon, where I was a TV journalist for 7 years. So I left everything behind me. In Cameroon, I was famous. I have a good job. Life was good, and it was my home country. However, I got this opportunity to go to this other country to have a very, very good job. So I decided to quit my job to go to this other country. However, I didn't know that God was working behind the scenes to get me out of my comfort zone and take me to a place where He was going to teach me to trust Him and Him alone. So the first thing He did was to shut down my source of income. I lost my job and I became obviously jobless. And from that moment, everything in my life started falling apart. I became so broke, I couldn't even afford a toothbrush. I remember days where for weeks I would brush my teeth with my fingers and salt. That's how miserable I had become. I experienced hunger, I experienced humiliation, and most importantly, I couldn't eat. Hunger. As you can see on these pictures, I became malnourished to the point that my bones were visible. But you know what? In the midst of that suffering, God became my everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I had to believe God for every single aspect of my life. You probably know the prayer, God, give us this day our daily bread. Well, that prayer took on its full meaning in my life. Every morning I would wake up not knowing how my daily bread was going to be provided. I remember days where I would look up to the sky in tears, hoping that the manna would fall down from heaven. That's how miserable I was. God always, was there to provide. Some time I would get a phone call from a friend, invited me to lunch. Some other day, a stranger on the street would give me some money. That's how I managed to survive. And the turning point came one day, actually one evening. I went to the Bible study, and the prayer that night made an unusual request. He said, I feel like God is telling me to tell you to write Him a letter. And in your letter, please express your needs to God. So we were to write a letter to God expressing our needs to Him. To be quite honest, I didn't understand why I should write a letter to God, because I could just simply say a prayer, a verbal prayer, and that's it. But I was in such a desperate situation, I decided to obey. So I wrote my letter to God, and I asked God for big things. At that time in my life, I wanted to go to France to study. I wanted to complete a master's degree in business administration. And this was just a dream, because obviously I didn't have any financial resources to pay thousands of dollars for my master's degree program. I didn't have the money to pay for the plane ticket or for my accommodation in Paris. I didn't even know if I was going to be granted the visa to go to Paris. For those of you who know Africa, it's very difficult to get the visa, even when you have a very good situation. But in my situation, I didn't even have a job. It was almost impossible. Another request I asked God was to get married. I was single at the time, and I asked God to get married. And the last request on my letter to God was to come to the United States of America. And again, this was just a dream, someone living in poverty asking to go in the United States. That was just, unbelievable. But I believed that God was able to grant my request. So this was impossible request considering the situation in which I was in Africa. And as a matter of fact, when I presented my letter to God, to my pastor, he told me not to daydream. And this is the pastor who asked me to write a letter to God. Now, looking at my letter, he was like, this is unrealistic, because he knew my situation. So, but I told him, I know this seems impossible, but I believe God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all I could ever ask or imagine. I know that God can do this. So he was so impressed by my faith, and we prayed together, and what happened next was just unbelievable. God started opening doors. I got the visa to go to France. It was just a miracle, and I got even the money to pay for my plane ticket. I got the money the very day I was supposed to travel, at the last minute. I got to France the first few weeks. I was homeless because I didn't have a place to stay, but eventually God provided for an accommodation for me, and I also got a job in France, and that job allowed me to actually pay for my master degree program. For me, it was not just a master degree in business administration, it was in fact a master degree in faith and perseverance and courage, because it was quite a journey of faith. So just read the book for yourself. Every single thing happened miraculously, and I cannot explain everything. And by the way, I also got married. God gave me a very, very beautiful wife. Our wedding in Paris was gorgeous, just beautiful day. It was a gorgeous ceremony. And today, with my family, we live in Seattle. God also granted me my request to live in the United States of America. And when you read the story about my coming in the US, it will just blow your mind, because God can make the government of the US change the law just to let you in. That's what happened to me, and He can do the same for you. So read that book, it will change your life.